Go.
Hey, what's up, man?
So, dude.
So, it looks like I caught you in your car.
Yeah, you got me at the wheel.
It's awesome. Hey, give us a little peek and see where you're at. Where you're at? You get you.
I see
So
a
it
palm
looks like a giant palm tree out there.
Mhm.
Whoa!
Like paradise.
My head's all like, what? Oh,
Check it out.
dang!
Wow,
Look at all that.
that's the
Yeah,
coolest
palm trees.
parking
Someone
lot
lives in
I've seen.
someone lives in paradise.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You see, living all good. That's kid. Yeah, that's kid. We'll see you in a little bit.
Okay, man.
So we're going to do a little Bible study. You down with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. We're going to call this one the Seven Seals Scale and Jesus in Time Sermon. Sound good to you?
Sounds good to me. It's kind
Cool.
of funny.
This one's going to be about Jesus and the Seven Seals Scale, how they're parallel to each other. We have the seven seals, seven vials, seven trumpets scale that allow you to see Babylon rising, right? And then basically the fallen state of people and their effects, basically the wicked and their effects. And Jesus gave a progression model for that. This is what was hidden inside Daniel's 70 weeks. So we need to go over that. And we're going to start with some old scriptures that we talked about on past videos before we actually begin. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Hollywood Hustle TV starts now.
Welcome to the Hollywood Hustle. We can dance all night. Got the moves. You got moves and I got moves. Yes, it's the Hollywood Hustle.
Okie dokie. So we're going to begin with Esther chapter 3 and verse 13, just because I need to say a few things that's inside the seven seals scale, just to remind us what some of the symbols are. It says, then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written, according to all that Haman had commanded, unto the king's lieutenants and to the king's governors, and over that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of the king Ahasuerus was it written and sealed in the king's ring, and the letters were sent by posts into all the king's provinces. So you have letters that are written by scribes, right? They're sent by a king, right? By postmen or horsemen, you could say, right? And I have a word here, spread. Remember it says, do you know the spreadings of the clouds? Do you know the noise of his tabernacle, right? And so up here on verse 14, continuing on, actually, I'll drop down to it. It says, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province, right, was published, right? So published is you're given to publish, right, unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. And the posts, here's his couriers, right, or couriers, right, went out being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. All right, so decrees can be given by postmen to build what the king wants, right, a kingdom basically, right? And it says, I want you to remember this though, but the city Shushan was perplexed. I want you to memorize that because we're going to come back to that word perplexed. You'll see it in Luke 21:25, which we're about to read here soon. Okay. The next one I'm going to go read is Psalm 46. Psalm 46, verse 3 and 6. Just got to get a couple of these on camera. This was in the last video. You know, therefore we will not fear, though the earth be removed and the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. Right? So the earth is the mountain. So we talked about, though the waters thereof roar, remember roar, and be troubled. So the waters roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake. Well, we just talked about the mountains, that we went to this carried in the midst of the sea. Then we went from sea to waters back to mountains. Goes to show you that all these are the one and the very same thing, okay? These are people in the high places, and these are people, right? These are all peoples, right? Like I said in the last chapter, last book, said all people. Though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake. If you're troubled, you're going to roar, right? Remember that roar, right? With the swelling thereof. There's a swelling happening. A swelling we know is waves of the sea, right? Raging waves of the sea, like it says in Jude, right? Who foam out their own shame. So there is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God. There's a river, sounds like coming against these waters, right? That make glad. A river is waters of the sea, but this stream, it looks like it's coming against these streams, right? Memorize that. The city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. So these streams are connected to the holy place. God is in the midst of her. There it is, says God is in the midst of this river. Calls her the river. She shall not be moved. Right? It means this river is connected to the people. It's not going to be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathen raged. The kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, and the earth melted. So the earth is connected to the mountains. That means the earth and the mountains are connected to the kingdoms that are connected to the high places that are connected to people that's going to be moved. Right? All right, so then that's connected to the heathen, and they're going to rage. Rage is connected to roar. Okay? So you have rage and roar, right? Because what's troubling them? The kingdoms are being moved or melted. So we need to memorize melted is moved, right? Is carried in the midst of the sea. All right, we need to know that. Psalm 47:3. Then we're ready to begin on our little journey. It says, he shall subdue the people under us and nations under our feet. We need to know that. All right, we need to know that he's going to subdue. That's dominion theology. This is when Jesus comes back. Well, sort of. He shall subdue the people under us. Follow this line here. That line goes all the way over to removed. See that? Earth is removed. All right, now we saw that on camera. All right, let's go to Luke 21. And we're going to keep that spot there in Luke 21. Because we're going to come back to it, I think. Then we're going to begin our stuff. Luke 21, 28. Or 25, 26. All right, this is, I'm getting this on camera because I want you to remember that we're going to need to lift that camera. I want to get this one on camera because I want you to remember from the last video. Some people, a lot of people watching the last video because it's long, so people are probably setting aside time to watch it. I would. It is almost a 3-hour video, but you need to know it for this one. Okay. It says, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars and upon the earth. We just read earth, right? Distress of nations. Didn't we just say the earth was kingdoms, right? The kingdoms of the heathen. I say the nations are the heathen, right? Upon the earth, distress of nations. We're going to get to that word distress, right? With perplexity. Didn't we just read perplexity? Right? What gave them perplexity? I would say there's posts or a river. Postman is a river, which is horsemen or messengers that run through a river, right? Like a mainstream media. Okay? Perplexity comes from that. The sea and the waves, we just read about the sea, and the waves or the swellings, roaring. I'd say that come from Psalms we just read. And here's what it calls the sea and the waves. Men's hearts. Did we just say all that represented man and the heathen? Right, here it is. Men's hearts failing them for fear. Why do they rage and roar? Because of fear. And for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. So you can remember we read it in Isaiah in our last video that it said, "Look above to the heavens, but look upon the earth beneath, and they shall the heavens shall be rolled up like a scroll, and they'll be dissolved." Remember that we read that? You can look if you look upon the earth, or you look at the storm, your heart's going to fail you like Peter. But if you look unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, your heart won't fail, but you'll pass, right? And because you're now entering into a place of rest. Right? You look after those things that are coming on the earth. What's coming on the earth? For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Right? Remember the heavens will shake, the stars will fall like figs from a tree. Right? We're going to talk about this today. This right here is the stars of heaven, because we know heaven represents the stars, so we talked about that in our last video. We're going to talk about this today. We'll get back to it, but I'm just going to say it real quick. is that this represents the position of the powers of the people. It's not just heaven, it's the powers, or power or authority comes from the positions of the high places, which is all this. The moon, the sun, the stars. All that, remember it said it'll be darkened? So all those people, the lamp of the wicked will go out. All this is being fulfilled right now. All this is being fulfilled right now. You mean the second coming of Christ is coming? Sort of. The wheat's grown up with the tares. We're going to break all that down, okay? We'll come back to that. Let's go to Revelation 6. We're ready now to talk about the 7 seals. 7 seals. So, 7 seals is a scale. Now, I'm going to start with verse 1. And, yeah, I want to break this down because the people have been taught that there is a 7-year tribulation, right? And that out of Daniel's 70 weeks, that's that last week, it's a 7-year tribulation. And right before tribulation comes a rapture. Some people believe that in the middle of the tribulation, there's a mid-trib rapture, right? Where the church is caught up, Jesus is going to rescue us, right? It looks like things are going to get so bad that we need rescued, and we go up there and we get to go party in heaven, right, for 7 years, and God's going to pour out his wrath during the second half of the tribulation. Then we come back with Jesus and and we reign for 1,000 years. Then Satan's loose at the end. There's this quick battle, then like an Armageddon, and then the whole thing is over, right? We've all been kind of taught that. So that's called observing times. And they made it a one-time event. This is a one-time event, right? And you'll either be caught up in mid-tribulation or pre-tribulation. Some people say post-tribulation. There's 3 different beliefs on that timeline. And what we're trying to say in the Great Awakening, part of the Great Awakening is not just we're kicking out the deep state and outing the fake news and the fake news going to collapse, and we're kicking out the bankers, the Federal Reserve, and bringing a new gold-backed dollar. Also, the full revelation of Jesus Christ is in this movement. And so what we call the red pill movement. It's outside the church because the church is Pharisee, or they teach the lying doctrines, or the darkened counsel by words without knowledge, like it says in Job. The church is very Pharisee, art of separation. They make sure you don't find God. The truth is that it's not a timeline. It's a scale hidden in a timeline, because one would be so close to another that, and it's very close to see a timeline, which a timeline does have a chronological order, but a progressional model, a progression is what it is. It's a scale or a spectrum. A spectrum has a progression to it, which looks very similar to a timeline, right? So it is not a 7-year timeline. It is a progressional model of line upon line, precept upon precept of evil that needs to be built, or evil upon evil, or breach upon breach, like we talked about in our past videos. Evil has to be laid down before evil, right? So there is a scale to that, and that's what Jesus talked about. Inside Daniel's 70 weeks was that 70th week, or the short scale, like we talked about. The 7 weeks, or the long scale, but there was a 62 weeks. But that's all it said was troublous times, that the people of the prince shall come and destroy the city. Jesus talked about that. He said that Jerusalem shall be trodden down, and he said they'll come destroy the city and the sanctuary. Well, the sanctuary was destroyed. That would happen in 70 AD. But you have to understand, this is only one piece or one angle of this prophecy being fulfilled, right? This is a scale that repeats itself over and over again. So how can they continue to destroy Jerusalem? Well, first you have to understand that anyone on the 7 sevens can be restored and restore their nations. That's the revelation of Jesus Christ. The full mind of Christ is all 7 scales. The scales allow you to see when the rise and fall of nations happen and how to take back your nation. It's not just Israel that needs to come back as a nation. Israel came back as a nation in 1948 because they shed innocent blood, not because they repented and called upon the name of Jesus. You know? So what they did was they used the Balfour Declaration, to get Palestine. And they shed innocent blood, and they called in America into the war, and there was a bunch of people that died, right? That's a curse. That's all part of the curse. It wasn't God's plan. Well, I thought Jesus, Israel was Jesus' chosen people, God's chosen people. They are, but remember, Jesus is the chosen one. Jesus fulfilled the covenant. Well, it sounds like that's, replacement theology. Well, the church did not replace Israel. The church is in Christ, and Christ is Israel, who is Judah. Anyone now Christ is not a replacement, he's a fulfillment. What happens with the Scofield Bible and Scofield, the Jews worked with Scofield to change that so you'd be pro-Israel, because they were being outed on all the shady things that they were doing. And we're going to get into that on a future video after we finish the 7 scales, that it was the Pharisees and Sadducees and the scribes. The scribes, they're still here today. They infiltrate high places, and they write history according to how they win, right? And they pick on a weak church that doesn't know the doctrines, but now we know the doctrines. So this is what it is. All right. So, so basically, it isn't a replacement theology. You're grafted in, but that whole seven sevens repeats itself in every nation, every generation, because it's a scale. The 62 weeks repeats itself again in every nation, in every generation, by whoever has that 70th week state in them, right? And so the city and the sanctuary is now on us, and they've now come destroy us. All right, so yet we are Jerusalem. So when Jerusalem, the physical Jerusalem, was destroyed, now they have to destroy the people, right, of Jerusalem, that we still are the city, right? So that it still continues itself. That's what I'm saying. This scale repeats itself. Okay, so what happened is Jesus zeroed in on this scale in Mark 24, Luke 13, or Mark 13, Luke 21. Those 3 scriptures, 3 different accounts of Daniel's 62 weeks. It's the troublous times. It's not a beginning of a 7-year tribulation. This can happen at any time. Right now, we are in the 5th seal being loosed in Europe because Christians are being killed. We are in the 4th seal in America because all 4 seals are being loosed, and all the foundation, all the postmen, all the runners of the words of men is confirmed the covenant in many for 1 week. Meaning that short scale, or the cloud, remember the balancings of the clouds? Right? Do you understand the balancings of the clouds? I'm trying to teach you. The balancings of the clouds is a short scale and a long scale. The devil's pyramid schemes and short scales of the Westwood and Southwood, and God's long scale of 4 squares of Eastwood, Northwood. And right now we have the military kicking out all the bankers and all that stuff's going on right now. The deep state. This is the deep state, the short scale. Okay, the fake news and the deep state and all that stuff is going on. They're bringing us 62 weeks. That's why you hear stuff like straight white male and all this other stuff, and men against women and women against men and blacks against whites and all that stuff, right? And everyone's just so racist, but the straight white male, right? That's what's going on right now. That's 62 weeks. And if you stand up against it, you're going to suffer persecution. Jesus zeroed in on that, and John broke it down and showed that it's a scale, not a timeline. Here we go. We're going to go into Revelation 6:1. So first you find out, I'm just going to beeline it because you can read this on your own, right? You find out you can open these seals, right? These are seals of that only the Lamb can open, right? It says the Lamb opened the seal. Only Jesus can show you this through Revelation, right? So you got the white horse, and he sat on a boat, or he that sat on him, on the white horse, that's a rider, it's a postman, which from Esther, had a bow. You find out that this bow is called a deceitful bow. We'll break this down when we do our dark arts playlist, when we zero in on the dark side of things. But basically, it says he had a crown, and a crown was given him, and he went forth conquering and conquer. They said, this is the Antichrist. No, it's not the Antichrist, everyone. This is all 4 horsemen are the mindset of the Antichrist. It's not just one horse. All 4 is the mindset. These are internal, what build internal frames. These are the doctrines of devils, or you could say the counsel of the wicked. It's the doctrines that the devils came down and they gave it to men in Genesis 6, right? This art of seduction and art of separation is what this is. This right here is all lying doctrines that conquer you. It's like feminism, Black Lives Matter, KKK, LGBTQ, right? It's all the victim stuff, right? And then it's all like fight Israel's wars, neocon stuff. It's like Israel's God's chosen people, so they can shed innocent blood. It's okay, right? That's what this is, right? So white horse, a lie. Sounds good. It looks good, but it's a lie. All right. So then, but it says that we're more than conquerors, right? So if you're being conquered, you know, you're in the hand of the enemy. We're going to get into that in future videos. All right. The second one is, second beast says, come and see. It says a red horse. This is where it says he's taken peace from the earth and they should kill one another, right? And it's given him a great sword. This is the war horse. So this is the lying horse. This is the war horse. And the third one, the third horse is up here. It's the black horse. They say this is famine, sort of. Famine by money changing. This is the money changer because he said Saddam had a pair of balances. This is the money changers. This is where you receive, because the reason why it's a horse, because you have to receive the knowledge of the mark of the beast. What it is it's knowledge that, well, what other way is there then but to put people in pyramid schemes, right? And live upon usury and print off money and blah, 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 right? That's all this, right? One-sided deals where it's good for you and you screw someone else, right? That's right. And that's why it goes into right here. It says, and a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny. That's what it talks about. The penny was a denarius, right? That's why dinar, the Iraqi dinar, it's right in there, everybody. All right, a measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny. See thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So this is money changing. This is not gold. This is fake money, everyone. This is fiat currency. All right, that's what that is. Wake up, okay? So that's why Jesus flipped over money changer tables. He was flipping over the black horse that was in that nation. Okay, he was turning tables. Okay, not because of blemished lambs and all that stuff. That's all made up. So when he opened the fourth seal, and I heard a beast say, come and see. So notice that the first 4 seals are 4 horsemen apocalypse. There was a pale horse, and on him rode death and hell. And power was given on him over a 4th part of the earth, and to kill with sword, hunger, there's famine, with death and the beasts of the earth. This is where like wild animals just come into your backyard and kill your babies and stuff, right? Those are curses. Okay, those are all curses. You could also say car accidents, right? You know, death and all this. You could say coronavirus. That's in that. It's words of men where they're like, oh, the coronavirus is everywhere, and blah blah blah. People are dying. Like, it's right. It's all words. It's all this is delivered through a mainstream media. All 4 horsemen come through, and there's perplexity and distress of nations come through that. Okay. So when he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for testimony which they held. This is the 5th seal. This is happening in Europe. This is not happening in America. That's what I said. World War I, World War II. Red horses. That's what I said. It repeats itself. Every single war that happens is a red horse. What sets up those wars? White horses. And why do they all get set up? The banking. The bankers fund both sides of the war. That's the black horse. And then you see the 4th one. All that's set up to conquer nations, rise and fall of nations through economic and military power. Right? And that's all setting up what? A monopoly, a one world order. That's what, all right? And there's a peak to that, all right? And the peak is trying to get the land of Israel. And that's why you see, we'll get to it in Matthew 24, where we talked about, when you see the abomination of desolation stand in a holy place, which is in Judea, Jerusalem. That's the capital of the pyramid system. Why? Because the devil needs to occupy it so God doesn't. All right, so when he opened the 5th seal, you saw all them slain. This is when, these are weak Christians, by the way. They don't know their rights and privileges. They haven't grown into the revelation. They're given into his hand for a times and a half. Basically, as long as they're broken and they're sold short by what way is light parted, that scatters the east wind. These are part of the east wind, right? They're being scattered because they're slain. They will wear out the saints of the Most High. That's in Daniel. We'll get into that in a future video when we do the dark side of things, right? But they say they cried with a loud voice saying, how long? See, they don't even know. They're asking how long. So, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And the answer actually to that is 4 times and a half. But it says, white robes were given unto every one of them. It was said to them, they should rest yet for a little season. Same thing. Times and a half is a little while. a little whiles, a little season, or a little time, or but for a moment or a short time. You'll see that short is little, and it's all it is, or as long as your blindness is in part, right? So blindness in part, yes, sir.
I was going to say, it could also be the midst of the week. In the midst.
Yes, thank you. In the midst of the week, he'll cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, right? You're supposed to sacrifice yourself, but not in the sense of, go and get martyred. You will get martyred, and there's a reward for that, you know what I mean? If you're on that level, but you can break and get to a higher level where you actually get delivered from everything. You can accept deliverance. But there's certain Christians that did not know that. Deliverance is part of it. You have to set up it's not that you have to ask God to do it. You have to know it, so your belief system's up, so you build your hedge of protection around about you. That's the way that works. All right, so you have to know that happens at a 5th level. 6th level, this is in congruence with our last video. And I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. All right, that's all quoted from Matthew. It's also in Joel. And the stars of heaven, so now we're talking about, there's an earthquake, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, right? It fell, even as a fig tree cast her untimely figs when she is shaken. Remember, it said the powers of heaven shall be shaken of a mighty wind. And when you shake, you fall. Remember, we talked about all that from Job, right? You'll fall and you'll be brought low. Job 14. If you're not in honor, you're in dishonor, where you fall, right? You fall, and the stars of heaven, we know, are the heads of the high places. They fall. And the heaven departed as a scroll. These are the mindsets or the strongholds now of their positions, departed as a scroll when is rolled together. Remember I said the heavens will change because inside these stars is their countenance. Their countenance is connected to a stronghold of thoughts, and those thoughts project in the air, and the air is the heaven, right? The air is the heaven. And this is, we'll go into that more when you find out about the 7 trumpets and 7 vial scale, which are doing next. All right. So when heavens departed as a scroll, a scroll is a roll of a book, and your book is connected to your crown. Remember, your crown, here it is, your star, right? And the crown makes the heavens, which is a roll of a book, right? It's going to be rolled up when God stretches out his hand. That's when the heavens change, right? The earth changes its garments because these people are being removed and God's setting up his people. And every mountain, see, mountains connected to stars, and island were moved out of their places. Moved or removed. He moved out of their place. Remember, the rock comes to nothing, is removed out of its place. It says in Job 14, right? And talked about the changing of the countenances. You can do this by changing just the countenance, by converting the person, or they can drop dead by the fire that's on the countenance of the believer, right? And that's how they fall, right? And they're moved out of their places. So place is tied to mountain, is tied to stars of heaven, right? You can, or earthquake is shake, is fall, right? And it says, and the kings of the earth, right, are the stars of heaven. That comes from Isaiah 24:25. We talked about that. The kings of the earth, the hosts, the high ones are on high. Oh, the stars, how high they are. And the great men. Remember, we talked about great and precious. Great is not how many there are. It's the height. How they're great versus small. Men and rich. So it's a rich men. And it's the next page. The rich men. Rich men makes you powerful, right? And they're rich because of the merchants, because of the rich men are rich because of pyramid schemes, because of the merchants, right? Because of the basically one-sided deals where money goes to them but not to everybody else, right? That's where it is right now. That's why prices are so high, right? They're rich right now, and they're about to fall. Okay. So, and there's chief captains, right? And the mighty men. These mighty men are going to end up being Nephilim that are coming, right? Right now, those mighty men are just devils working in the stars of heaven. But eventually, they're going to get their bodies back, and you're going to see hybrids. And every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. Oh, they hid themselves. Oh, sounds like perplexity, right? and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sits upon the throne, or on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath is come. Who shall be able to stand? Who can stand? But the ones that are carrying the great day of his wrath. See, you understand the face of the throne we talked about in Daniel is the wheel, right? It says that the thrones will fall. The thrones are, these are the thrones that was in Daniel 7. And then this is the face of God's garments this is on the saints. God's face is on the face of the saints, and their faces glow like fire. And it says in Isaiah that their faces will be as flames. And when they come, when the army of the Lord comes, they run, right? They said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face. So they actually run to the mountains and to the rocks. And this is multifaceted, because they hide themselves by what does it say? Does it say run? They hid. They hid by flee, okay? And they hid themselves in the dens and the rocks. So they hid by flee, by run, okay? You need to know that, all right? And this is the first 6 seals. If we just scroll over to the next page, and one more right here, it says right here, see how it says there's silence in heaven about the space of half an hour, right? If we go down on the next page over here, it'll talk about this is the 7th seal down here. So when he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for a space of half an hour. If we go back up over here, see right here, and then we're going to get into the 7 trumpets in our next video. But we need to talk about this. Silence in space, see it says space of half an hour. An hour is a week, it's a day, it's a month, a year, it's a season. Half of that means in the midst of the week, like we talked about. It says in the midst of the week. Well, basically, as long there's silence, you don't want silence in heaven. That's fullness. That's why it's a 7. This is fullness of the removal of heaven out of people. Like when you get rid of people, God's not happy, because there's no rejoicing in heaven when God lays the foundation. There's silence in heaven when there's no foundation laid. That means there's a removal of man, and God, it saddens him because he wanted to be connected to man. And so these are people that reject God, and God has to destroy them by fire, a consuming fire. All right, that's why the 6 is they run from the face of him that sits upon the throne. That's God's face. There's consuming fire on the face of the saints. Let's go to Matthew 24. Matthew 24. So right now we're seeing that's the 7 seal scale. It's a progression. You need to have the first 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the words of men, laid in the hearts of men, because this is how he confirms his covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of that week, he'll cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. Or these 4 horsemen are words of men that make you not sacrifice yourself. What happens is Messiah is cut off in all these people. That doesn't mean Messiah is cut off in another group of people, because the word of God can abound inside the saints and inside the church, right? But they have to know the word of God. You have to know it, like I'm teaching you right now. You have to know this scale, that it repeats itself. Right now, the church is at a day 1 or 2, part of 3, only because of people learn a little bit of day 3 things because of sales psychology, and they have to network, right? That's how people are networking, but they're building a pyramid. It's the same thing on the Mark 3 side, or the lower scale side, when you start getting marked with words of men, which is the 4 horse apocalypse, right? The 4 horse apocalypse are internal frames. Those are your internal frames. They build your channels and chambers, or they engrave those chambers inside your soul, so you can be born again and still have these in you. You can still release them in your nation by releasing them in people. They can be in the unwise virgins. They can be in hirelings, or in all the kings of the earth. But they can be in God's people, which are unwise virgins. That's what marks you and breaks your covenant with God, makes you backslide, where you think that you're with God still and you're okay, but you're really not, right? And so those things mark you, and they begin to degenerate you, and brings that shadow of death, and it labels you and numbers you among transgressors, or 70th week people. That's a short scale. You've been sold short, which is a little while, which is but for a moment, which is for there's silence in heaven for space, a half an hour. There's space there. That's actually what they call space, because there really is not space out there. There's the breaches are bound up out there. They want a space out there. The Luciferians, the Illuminati, all the globalists and stuff, they want you to believe that we're on a globe, but you have to know the flat earth model. Outside the dome, there is no breaches, right? There's only the words of God, and God's name is magnified, and God's magnified out there. But inside here, inside the dome, God's name is cast down, except for in the saints that know God. But there's not too many saints in the earth right now that know God to his fullness, where his habitation is on them, where they look like Mount Sinai. Okay? That model has to repeat itself. So the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are the first 4 levels of that scale that begin to build its foundation. That's why it's the first 4. That's the same way in the days of purification scale. The 7 days or 7 spirits of God is a scale. It's not the 7 things that are written in Isaiah, like the counsel of the Lord and the wisdom of God and the Spirit of the Lord. It's 7 levels of forming Christ in you. That's what the 7 spirits of God and 7 day scale is. The 7 lamps. They're all the same thing. There's 5 different ways to describe the 7 spirits with 7 spirits of God. There's 7 levels of forming Christ. There's only one Holy Spirit, but he's rightly divided into 7 levels of building your eastwood and your northwood, right? And that's just one scale. Even though it's talked about 5 different ways, it's one scale inside the 7 sevens, the long scales that make you form the mind of Christ. Even though you may build up your 7-day scale in the mind of Christ, you still need to know your enemy and how to conquer it, because Jesus is a conquering king, right? He conquers through his body. We conquer. People like to claim that all the time, that we're more than a conqueror through him that loved us, and we're going to conquer the devil, but yet they let the devil just run rampant in their nation, and they're defeated. You know what I mean? You cannot be a Christian and look like Jesus and be a feminist. You cannot be a Christian and be Black Lives Matter. You cannot be a Christian and look like Jesus and be LGBTQP. You can't do it. You can't be a Christian and fight Israel's wars and shed innocent blood. You can't do it. It's an abomination, right? So we're going to get into all that stuff coming up. We got to read Matthew 24. So those 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So we're going to start with verse 1. Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. Remember the temple, it says in Daniel 62, it says, the people of the prince shall come and destroy the city and the sanctuary. That's what this is. It's a sanctuary right here. That's the 62 weeks, right? Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be there left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down, right? Because they're going to destroy it. And they did in 70 AD. Why? Because Jesus was getting so big that he was about to conquer Rome. They said, well, Jesus went to the cross. He didn't conquer Rome. He did through his body. You find out after Rome fell, not because it got too big. People say, oh, Rome got too big and couldn't afford to pay the people that are far away and they couldn't control it. No, you can control a world empire. That's not true. Because the same people said that. Same people said, well, America's too big to fall, and America's falling, right? So no, it's that Rome fell because of Christianity. That's why later Rome moved to Constantinople, and they had to create the Holy Roman Empire and infiltrate the church because it conquered the whole thing. And so all things were fulfilled back then. That's what I said. You can fulfill it, and it'll be fulfilled again and again, 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 again. But this time, it won't be fulfilled in that area. It'll be fulfilled in the area of where you are, as long as you understand the game. All right? On both sides. So, and he sat upon the Mount of Olives. The disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? When shall be? Remember he talked about in Ecclesiastes 8, for the misery of man is great upon him, for he knows not which shall be, and who can tell him when it shall be. Which what? Good or evil? This is good. This is the good and evil scale. So, and what shall be the sign of your coming? There is a sign of his coming. And what shall, and the end of the world, which is the age, When does the times end? Right? So we know that an age can end by change, right? But you have to know, when does that change happen, right? And that's why it's called what shall be after. And so what shall be, this is what shall be. This is what I call the 7 seals, vials, and trumpets, the what shall be scales. All right, it tells you what shall be. And then it goes on to say, take heed that no man deceive you. That's why I said the white horse is the deception horse, or the lying horse. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. Well, let's see, that's the Antichrist. Well, there's going to be many Antichrists, and anyone, you have to understand that the spirit of Antichrist is in feminism. The spirit of Antichrist is in Black Lives Matter, KKK, LGBTQ. That's the spirit of Antichrist. Those are lies, doctrines of devils. They begin to darken you and make you an unwise virgin, where you look just like the world and you can't tell. That's what this is. You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Those are neocons. Those are people fight Israel's wars. They like to shed innocent blood, help Israel get their land back, right? Because they're God's chosen people. But you have to understand that through banking, they rob the nations. And the nations, they're killing innocent people. They're tired of them robbing the nations. That's why the wars and stuff, right? All these things must come to pass. It has to happen. Why? But the end is not yet. Why is this must come to pass? Because it's through 7 weeks and 62 weeks that God makes reconciliation. That's in the 70 weeks. The 7 weeks is the revelation of Jesus Christ, but you need, through many tribulations, you enter the kingdom of God. You have to go through these things, but you can overcome all these things. You can shut down the wars, you can shut down the lies, but it's also expose one against the other. And nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against, where are we here now? Kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, pestilences, earthquakes in diverse places. These famines are from them messing with the money changing. This is the black horse. All these are the beginning of sorrows. When there's pestilences, earthquakes, there comes death, and he talks about that down here, right? But this is the beginning of sorrows. Or you could say sorrows is what's caused by the 62 weeks. Same thing, that's putting inside Daniel's 70 weeks, right? This is a 62 week setup, which is Jesus just zeroed in on it. It was not talked about in the Old Testament. It's scattered in the Old Testament. Jesus put it in a progressional model and showed that it's a scale, and because everything was in scale. Do you understand the spreadings of the clouds? This thing has to spread, but also you have to understand that this has to spread, but the gospel has to spread to defeat it, right? That's what makes you grow, the brightness of your rising. So you know evil is, you hate it, right? And do you know the balancings of the clouds? This the balancing clouds of scale, and Jesus bore griefs and carried our sorrows, right? The curse came on Jesus. There's a difference between sorrow of the curse and sorrow of tribulation. This is all tribulation, right? Or called distress or troubles, right? And then they shall deliver you up to be afflicted, right? Is sorrow, and shall kill you. Well, this is where this is the 5th seal right here. They'll kill you. And shall be hated of all nations. See, the nations, for my name's sake. This is the nations that don't know God. This is the one that's trying to kill off all Christians, and right now the rhetoric is straight white male. But I guarantee in other nations, when Christianity was in another nation, it would have been the straight whatever yellow male, if it was in that nation, straight brown male. It would have been whenever nation that exalts that, that nation up and forms a rhetoric that makes you come against a strong man. All right, right now just so happens to be the white country. Okay, so, and hate of all nations for my name's sake. And when I say white country, I'm not talking about like we're just a white country, but we're 75% white. You have to understand that, okay? We're the multitude, a majority of the people, so you have to tear down the multitude, so you got to come against them and say that they're racist, right? Which white people said, everybody, it got rid of slavery, right? So, anyway, it says, Abraham Lincoln, so of all nations for my name's sake, and then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another, right? That's all happening right now. Everyone's betraying one another, hating one another, we're in a divide, right? Left wing against right wing. This is all happening right now. So yes, we're not in the 5th seal yet, but if Hillary Clinton would have got in, she would have loosed the 5th seal, which would have been right here. And many false prophets shall rise, and they're all over TBN and Hillsong. They're telling you that you can't be perfect, wait until Jesus comes back. They cause the sacrifice and the offering or the oblation to cease. They get you to stop offering yourself and sacrificing, or they try to make you look like, well, I don't want to be a Pharisee, so you become some like emasculated cuck, right? So Jesus is like soft and nice to everyone, right? And he's just this weak, emasculated, soft man. But he probably talked like this and said, for sure. So, anyways, many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many, right? Many are deceived right now, everyone. Shall confirm his covenant with many for 1 week. The covenant is where you're tied to the devil, and the devil's causing all of this. Because iniquity shall abound, right? And the love of many shall wax cold, but he that endures unto the end shall be saved. Well, the end means when Jesus comes back. No, this means when you can endure all these things, and God will deliver you from all these things. He'll deliver you from war. He'll deliver you from pestilence. All 4 horsemen apocalypse you can conquer. What beats the 4 horsemen apocalypse? So glad you asked. The 4 living creatures. If you don't know that, read Ezekiel. Okay? So that's Revelation Jesus Christ, or the 7 sevens. Just like how you could zero in on the 7 sevens, the same way you can zero in on 62 weeks and on the 70th week. And just like there's 4 horsemen of the apocalypse zeroed in on the 62 weeks, which is inside the 7 seal scale, you could zero in on the 7 sevens, you find out there's 4 living creatures. Okay? Because that's your foundation, words of men versus the word of God. All right? So the end is when there's a change. You'll be saved. We already talked about what saved means was the hand of God upon you. The hand of God upon you in greater measures. You have to get more of God. So that means during this time, you have to form your 7 sevens or be good and faithful. If you show yourself faithful, he'll deliver you. Just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were thrown into the fire and they were delivered. So, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached unto all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. This is a different end than this one. This end is the brightness of your rising. This end is the northward expansion. So when the brightness of the rising spreads, right, and you're conquering, you should be defeated. Because remember, it says out of the book of Daniel, says, tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. We give the devil trouble by us learning the scales, because then we outnumber them and we remove them out of the high places, or we destroy them with the power of God. Right? We remove them. Right? And that's the gospel. And then the end shall come. Or when the fire of God is what is your brightness of your rising, right? Is all on our face. That's the gospel. When we do signs and wonders, right? And we go into those high places and remove them. That's what's happening now. But we're not doing it through the brightness of rising. We're doing it through the northwood. Right? So when ye shall therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso reads, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. They'll run from the face of him that sits upon the throne. They'll hide into caves and dens. Say, hide us from the face of him that sits upon the throne. There will be, why is there people running from the presence of God? Because they were deceived, and then scales fall from their eyes, like Saul. Pharisees, everyone. These are the Jews that wake up. They flee. The Jews that got their nation back through robbery. Not all the Jews did this. There's ones above them in a pyramid system that did it, but they're at the bottom of the pyramid, but they get to go back into their homeland too. That's where they are now. But when this comes over there, they're going to flee, right? Let him, just what Jesus is talking about. For those of you that were deceived, you woke up by the Gentiles. The Gentiles wake up the Jews, by the way. Let him that is on the housetop not come down to take anything out, right? Neither let him which is in the field return back to his house to take his clothes. Woe unto them that are with child, to them that give suck in those days. But pray that their flight is that they flee into the mountains. They'll say to the mountains, fall on us, to the hills cover us, hide us from the face of him that sits upon the throne. Oh, that means God's face is coming, right? But where's God's face? You find out that they're surrounded by armies of the Lord, which is coming up against Nephilim. That's what you find out the Jews helped build the Nephilim, build the cloning and artificial intelligence, super soldiers. They start building all that, and they're surrounded by armies. It says in another, I will read it in Luke 21. But he says, I pray that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath day, for then shall be great tribulation. This is when when is great tribulation? When you're at a 5th level, right? There's a couple angles to this. Then shall be great tribulation, such was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. in book of Mark 13, it says since creation. You find out that since God created things, you find out there's things there that God did not create, whose names were not written in the Lamb's book of life, right? So there's abominations or hybrids. So then shall be great tribulation. Great tribulations when they get set up in a high place. We're going to come back to this exact same place. We're going to hold our place here. Let's go to Nehemiah 9:37. We're going to find what great tribulation is. It says, right? And it yieldeth much increase unto the kings whom thou hast set over us because of our sins. Also they have dominion over our bodies. Oh, how'd they get dominion over our bodies? Well, they have dominion over our bodies, not just, telling you what to do and everything, being set over you, but also they're bringing out hybrids. You're going to have to accept the mark of the beast, which is an artificial intelligence system of commerce first that's stored in the internet, where you have cryptocurrency, but inside the internet is social media. Those are where your education's going. Social policies that's going to form the four horsemen of the apocalypse inside you, or to confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Or it's going to put the short scale inside you through doctrines of devils, which is all four horsemen. That's lying words that makes you look, it's by peace he'll seduce, right? It puts those lying policies like feminism, Black Lives Matter, KKK, LGBTQP. You're going to learn, like, it's okay to, be a soft emasculated man. And so you're going to have a right hand art of separation, left hand art of seduction. In those four horsemen, it's going to be confirmed in you, written in your heart. And it's going to basically, words of men, lying policies, doctrines of devils going to seduce you, turn you out the way, and make you look like the devil. And then there's going to be a master over all of you, or a head, the people of the prince of darkness, who is Nimrod. He's going to be able to connect himself as a mastermind in all the people, even the very elect, unwise virgins. And they're not going to be able to get him out of their head, because he's going to be there. It's installed into him, unless you somehow get the internet out of you, right? And right now it's external. It's all surrounded, all by us, but it's not in us yet, right? But it will be in. That's why I said it's a progressional model. We're beginning to see it unravel. It's showing itself. But you find out that when they're over our bodies and over our cattle at their pleasure, right? It's not at our pleasure, it's at their pleasure. And we are in great tribulation or great distress. What is great distress? When they're set over you. So when they're set over you, that's a fifth level. But it's also, you find out in the 7 trumpets and vial scale, that when they're set over you, that fifth level affects the 6th level and affects the 4th level. Okay? You find out, we'll get into that, but you find out the 4th level is what's called a sun, moon, star level. The sun is darkened. So the 5th level affects the 4th level. And then the air is darkened, right? You find out that the air the air, you find out it's 1 step above. All right? We'll zero in on that the air is darkened and the sun is darkened. Yeah, and the air is darkened by the locust and the black smoke, and the black smoke is the cloud of the short scale. So all these are synonymous terms of one and the same thing. You have to understand that these high places, as long as the black smoke is in a person and they're in a high place and they're set over you, they can pass laws that will spread their cloud. That's why you have to know spreadings of the clouds. The spreadings of the clouds, there's 2 sides. Is in that 70th week, and they bring us 62 weeks. But 62 weeks is a progression model of a scale of how much tribulation you're about to enter into. That's why I know no one's going to get killed over here. If you go to Europe, you're going to walk inside the grid of the House of Darkness where the 5th seal's loose. You may be killed over there because they let in all those refugees and stuff, and right, and they're killing people. All right, so that's that right there. That's where that comes from. Once you understand that, we're going to go back to let's go back to Revelation 6. We'll go Revelation 6. Actually, flip over to 9. Because I brought it up, and I want to make sure I say it clear. It's, right there. Yeah, the sun in the air. See? When he opened the bottomless pit, this is in the 7 trumpet scale. We'll do this in a future video, but he opened It has to be, he has an open hell. And you find out from Isaiah that's through drying up, withering, right? And what withers you have to understand that the 7 seals, vials, and trumpets are all scales that play out inside. You see them in the mind of Christ, but it's not, they made it to where the 7 seals is first, and then the 7 vials and trumpets is second, after the halfway through the 7-year tribulation point, right? But this is not after. This is all congruent. They all stack one on top of another, because and I have to talk a little bit about the next video, because you have to understand that seeing 62 weeks of tribulation and seeing the 70th week people, which are hirelings, kings of the earth, unwise virgins, right? They're the tares, right? As a wheat, you need all 7 scales to see where this is at in its progressional model and what kind of tribulation you're going to walk through, right? Because it says the simple pass on and are punished. You don't want to be punished. You want to escape and avoid and dodge tribulation. This is why you need the scale, so you can dodge those things, right? And so the 7 inside the 7 sevens is all 7 seals, vials, and trumpets. So you can see, but you can also, when you get to a point of judgment of the brightness of your rising or your expansion of your northwood, and that inside the northwood is forming chords where your multitude outnumbers this one, and you can set yourself now over this, and this goes away, and this one rolls up this one. God stretches out his hand, and this one rolls up like a scroll, because you make these ones fall like figs from a tree. And we're doing that through a northwood, but it's only done through the military, and now they're forming a brand new river, a mainstream media, right? And that's what Cube movement is, and that's what we're doing. We're part of that, right? But all the different streams are now coming together to form a mainstream pure river, water life, to come against the Euphrates River. Euphrates River is drying up, all right? And that's also in the same book. But back to this, you see that's that smoke that we've been talking about. Smoke of a great furnace that comes out of the bottomless pit, okay? That's hell. Inside that, you find that there's locusts, but you see that the air is affected because the 5th and 6th seal are very similar. The 5th seal just means you're a king. 6th seal means you remove other mountains. We talk about that, removing mountains from Psalms. But I have to kind of say that a little bit on camera to make sense of this. This is something that happens when this thing right here is winning, right? This right here happens when the saints are being killed, right? This happens and saints are killed. That's why the 5th trumpet is is congruent with the 5th seal. They're all the 5th level of all 7 seals, vials, and trumpets. They're all congruent. Everything happens at a 5th level, at a 4th level, and all 3 scales, right? They're all congruent. They're not, this one's first, then that one. That's why it doesn't make sense. They put it on a timeline, said this happens in a timeline, and it's a one-time event. You're waiting for it, so that you never understand that it's all scales are stacked one top upon another, and it gives you eyes to see, so you see where Babylon is in its progressional model and how to come against it and withstand it and hold it back and destroy it, to roll it up like a scroll and make those stars and those people fall, so you see Jesus will conquer, right? Not when he comes back, conquer now through the Holy Spirit. Okay, back to Matthew 24. We have to continue to read the rest of that, and then we're going to go over to Luke 21 and Mark 13. We're almost done, guys. It's actually going to be a quick one. As we're at an hour. It's quick compared to our 3-hour one. So we left off down here. It says, and then shall be great tribulation where they're set over you, right? When is then? You scroll back up here. It says, then let them which be in Judea. Well, what happens is, the reason why it says, let them which be in Judea flee, because the abomination stands in the high places. They're in the holy place. This is multifaceted. The holy place is inside the holy people, right? But it's also a physical land of Israel, right? But it's also heaven itself, right? Ultimately, they want to put the abomination desolation stand on the Sea of Glass. That's where the holy place is, the sea on top of Sea of Glass. But they need to build the Tower of Babel again and connect it to all the pyramids and like melt the firmament. That's what they're trying to do. That's what they tried to do before. everybody, we're in a snow globe. They're trying to melt the firmament. The firmament's a dome. It's just like Truman Show, right? Stop thinking there's space. That's where they create the bottomless pit, right? And make you without form and void. So darkness upon the face of your deep, your depths, so you don't understand, right? The bottom fell out, or they removed the foundation. Just like they did that by, remember, one's so close to another. They did that, make you by observing times and removing the foundation of all the revelation of Jesus Christ. That's what I said, the flat earth is part of the revelation of Jesus Christ. So when you therefore see the abomination stand, abomination of desolation stand in the holy place, they're set over you. They're standing up over you. Then let them flee. We'll have to read another account of this, but that's when great tribulations are set over you, right? That's why I said if Hillary Clinton got in, this whole thing repeats itself in every nation, every generation, every nation. But Jesus zeroed in when it's hitting its fullness over there in Israel. But this same scale repeats itself over and over. It's not a one-time thing, guys. It repeats itself. That's why it's not a 7-year tribulation in the future. It's something. The whole book of Revelation, Jesus Christ, is a beeline of the entire grid of the whole game, how it works. So you can see when the enemy's rising and when God's people are rising, and it's this pendulum. Our government was made the same way, right? And then shall great tribulation, with pendulum, which is the balance, which is the scale, and then shall great tribulation be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. Because now he's talking about the peak of it. This is the peak of it up here. Okay, we haven't been there yet, right? So, although those devils are set over you and they do kill people, but it's when they're in their bodies and they monopolize everything. That's when it's in its fullness and it covers the whole world. Babylon didn't even make it to that point yet. Tower of Babel didn't even make it to that point. They were building it, and that was the beginning of its kingdom. This is the end of the kingdom, like of Babel. They're building the same thing. It's in puzzle pieces. The beginning of the kingdom was Babel, right? The tongues were divided. Then you see Babylon formed in 4 pieces. Babylon, Medo-Persia, Grecia, Rome. And you see it hitting its peak again in Rome, and Jesus tore it all down after he was resurrected through the church. Okay, and then the end of it is at the very end when the hybrids come back. That's the fallen angels, as like Nephilim and stuff. That's cloning and artificial intelligence. When it says, except those days should be shortened. Those days of what? That means that those days, this tribulation repeats itself over and over and over in different ways, but it's going to finally, those devils that are set over you and the kings of the earth are finally going to get their own bodies back. As I said, it repeats itself over and over and over until they can finally get us to build what they want us to build, which is the bodies. Once we finally build their bodies, they get back in that. As I said, cloning's a real thing, everybody. Look up Dave Chappelle. All right, that's a real thing. That's why he's all jacked. That guy has he was scrawny and he was an artisan. Now he's a guardian temperament. You can't change your temperament.
His own family said that it's not the same.
Yeah, his own family said, it's a viral video. His own family said it's not him. So except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, right? Why is no flesh be saved? You find out they're cannibals. All right, that's for another future video. We'll do that on the dark playlist coming up. All right, so how do you shorten those days? But for the elect's sake, those days should be shortened. This doesn't mean that they're going to shorten 24 hours and like the sun's not going to come up as long and you're going to have more night than day. No, this means those times, that season of them doing that is going to be shortened. Why? You find out the word shortened is tied to, I think I didn't write it down. Yeah, I did. Psalm 89. Let's go to Psalm 89:45. Psalm 89:45. How do you shorten the days? Here it tells the principle. Thou hast made his glory to cease. Thou hast cast his throne down to the ground. Well, looks like you can cast down thrones to the ground on both sides. The devil can do it to God's people, like happened to Job, but you can also do it to the devil's people. How does that happen? The days of his use has thou shortened. Well, you can shorten days. How? Thou hast covered him with shame. How long, O Lord? How long? Did we just read that? This is where all it comes from, everyone. How long would you hide yourself forever? When God shows himself, right, then they hide. Hide us from the face of him who sits upon the throne. Where's the throne? Covering you. When their faces shall be as flames. You can look that up. It's in Isaiah. Their faces, when their faces are as flames, that's the second coming of Christ, which is not him coming back this way. He comes back this way. That's when the church finally grows up and gets all the real intent of the scriptures, everyone. I've been trying to get you to here, right? Remember how short my time is. When is your time short? When you're in vain. You're short, you're little, but for a moment, right? It's a short space. Right, all right. They have space for a half an hour, and half is short, is little. By what way is light parted? When you're vain. When are you vain? When you're empty, broken, nothing. Right? When hell's inside you, or you open the bottomless pit, when you have smoke in you. Now all these videos should be adding up, right? That's when God's not covering you, but the devil's covering you. Or the 70th week is covering you versus the 7/7's covering you, right? But we can cast down the 70th week and build and bind up that breach. So now your youth is renewed, and you bring the splendor and the brightness back when God covers you. You bring that back, and that's when you stand. Instead of them standing in the holy place, Jesus stands in the holy place of every single individual hair on his head, or every air on the face of the deep, which is the glory of the Lord covers the earth like waters cover seas. Second coming of Christ isn't what they told you, everybody. We're not on a planet, and Jesus not coming back on a timeline. We're in a flat earth, enclosed tent, dome, and Jesus comes back. Every single nation, every single generation, as long as everyone has a chance to get resurrected, everyone. We've all been aging and dying. Now we have to wait for the generation that will rise up and stand with the dew on them, stand over your grave and help you get your body back. So hopefully you weren't cremated and got ashes blown everywhere, right? They'll go to the graves and we start collecting those bodies of many saints that slept, they'll rise. Just like in Matthew 27:52. Okay, that's how it works. This is in the apostolic. So, and then once we do that, then it'll be a great falling away again, because that's what happens. All right, let's go read the end of Matthew 24, and then we're going to go briefly look over Luke 21 and Mark 16, and we'll be done. So then it talks about, says, lo here, when they say lo here, lo there is Christ, don't believe it, because there shall rise false Christs and false prophets, right, shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall delete to see the very elect. This repeats itself. We've already seen that. It will come in greater measures, because they're going to do lying signs and wonders through digital effects, through cameras and all that stuff. Right, behold, I've told you before, or I've told you all these things. It says in another account of this. I have told you all these things. He gave us all the progression, and then John wrote it all out too in the last book. All things that pertain to life and godliness to grow up, but he shows us all things. I'll take of mine, show it unto you. I'll do that in our future video. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, behold, he's in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he's in the secret chambers, believe it not. Here's the answer. For as the lightning. Where do we read about lightning before? It's in Ezekiel. The angels are as lightning, right? Your face shines like that of an angel. And it's like it says in Acts, happened to Steve, a man full of faith and full of the Holy Ghost. If you're full of faith and full of the Holy Ghost, or you have the fullness of the revelation of Jesus Christ, you've gone from milk to meat, you understand the spreadings of the clouds and noise of his tabernacle, and now you're good and faithful because you have passed all the tests, and you went through tribulation, and you overcome him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony, and you love not your life even unto death. You see what I'm saying? When you do that, then you pass all the tests, and lightning shines on your face. And that's when it comes. It shines on your face. The shining. Remember we just talked about the shine? Where's he shine? On your face. This brightness is of your rising. This rise and fall of countenance, everyone. Out of the east. It shines even unto the west. It comes out of the kings of the east. It shines even unto the westwood people. That's when they wake up. And then they have to run so they don't die. Because God doesn't want... Because that whole... Judah is going to be destroyed by fire and brimstone, which is what's going to happen, right? So shall also the coming of Son of Man be, which is also hail and everything else, because God's an earthquake and hail and fire and brimstone, right? For wheresoever the carcass is, there the eagles be gathered together. Or this is what happens if you stick around. So, you know what I mean? Because if you stick around, You're going to drop dead like Ananias and Sapphira. That's why I said this is blood. Blood and fire and vapor of smoke before the great noble day of the Lord come. Because what happens? Because immediately, this is what shall be after the tribulation, or after, Mirror says, and after 62 weeks, immediately after tribulation, right? What does make tribulation end? The brightness of your rising. Oh, look. So don't think timeline. Think what makes the change? By this birthing. So immediately at what ends tribulation of those days? That means it repeats itself, everybody. It's not 7-year timeline. That means it's a scale that repeats itself, right? Shall the sun be darkened and the moon shall not give her light. Who's the sun and the moon? The high, people in the high places, the wicked. And stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. They'll fall and shake, right? And then shall appear. Oh, look, where does it appear? As lightning that shines on your face. And the sign, that's the signs of the times. Now, this is a different sign of the times. We always read all the bad stuff, says, look, the signs of the times, wars and rumors of wars, you know, and we're all defeated and Jesus will come back to rescue us. No, those are signs that the times are evil, but you need to rise up. It says, when you see that, the evening stretch out, the morning go away, prepare for war. Now, when you prepare for war, you begin to do you fight a good fight of faith. You lay hold on eternal life, and eternal life is the lightning, and it begins to show on your face. Then you take your nation back by making them fall, and that's what that happens to them. This happens to them, right? They fall and they're shaken. Why? The fallen carcass, everyone. They fall just like, you know, this is what the second coming of Christ looks like. You rise up. It can happen. It could have happened at any time. Isn't that funny? Why would Jesus wait thousands of years to get victory over the devil after he just beat him? He wants you to get victory. Every single nation that's born, every generation that's born, he wants you to get victory over the devil, not wait till he comes back. That's dumb. You have to look by wait. That you have to look up. That means build all your compass of eyes round about you. That your compass of eyes all around about you is renewing of the mind, which makes his appearing. Right? That means you got to, yes, you can beat the flesh. Right, like I've been saying, it's Paul's pattern. Go back and watch his videos. And then shall appear the sign of Son of Man in heaven. Why? And then shall all the tribes of earth mourn, and they shall see the sign of Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Doesn't mean he's coming back from heaven. No, the cloud. Do you know the spreadings of the clouds? Do you understand the balancings of the clouds? We know the cloud is your garments, which is on your face from Job. That's why you have to go. Everything was hidden in Job. Job was the master key. Seeing the root of the matter is found in me, Job said. It's in Job. The apostolic revelation, apostolic movement is in Job. So it's right here. So the cloud, he comes back on your face, everyone. He appears or comes in a cloud of heaven. But where's heaven? Book of Luke says it's inside you. They'll say not lo here and lo there's the kingdom, but shall be in you. Right? He shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. Then, why does he send his angels with the sound of a great trumpet? This is the last trumpet. They shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Why does he gather you? Not to rescue you. He gathers you after you got your nation back, after you killed off all the enemy. Why does he gather you? Because you get so bright, you're going to kill the new ones that are in Adam, the babies, the people that they're running to the mountains right now. They have to come back after we leave. You have to understand, people run. The things that we want to destroy is all the wicked is consumed by fire. It's like a flood that covers the earth and destroys all the Nephilim again. And then those that are not in Nephilim, not in Nimrod, and are not in Christ either, to have a chance to actually hear the gospel and get born again, you leave them clues of what happened, and then they pick it up and they figure it out like we had to. This is what happened in early church. This is why the great falling away, because they went back and they changed the doctrines of the church after there was a great rapture. This is a rapture. This rapture repeats itself. God has to take a hit. This is why it says Mashiach is cut off. And after 62 weeks shall Mashiach be cut off, but not for himself. This is it right here. Messiah got cut off because he appeared on the face of the saints and he had to take them to heaven. All right? It's not 7-year tribulation or 7-year timeline. This happens over and over again. This can happen in every single... This can happen in one part of the world and not in another, by the way. It happens wherever it's birthed. So that's what he said. Now learn the parable of a fig tree, right? When his branch is yet tender. So you talk about its birthed. And put forth his leaves. Know his summer is nigh. It's birthed. See? See? It has to be tender, right? That means it's birthing. So likewise, when you shall see all these things, know that it's even at the doors, right? Verily I say unto you that this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. That generation saw all those things fulfilled. They were all caught up. Yes, Rome fell, 70 AD. They came and took the stuff, right? Paul was the first to go in. Then everybody followed Paul's pattern. They got raptured. Then the great falling away happened. Then they tried to build it all over again. But it says, but that day and hour knoweth no man. We're going to do that in a future video, right? If you find out what knoweth no man, remember we talked about in Ecclesiastes? You can look these scriptures up. Luke 10:22, John 16:15, Ecclesiastes 8:6-7, if you want to get ahead of my video, right? But it says, but the wise man shall know. Why? Because you shall see. When's the... But the day and hour knoweth no man. No, not the angel nor the Father in heaven. You're not going to know the algorithm of when the whole game is over. But that's when the firmament melts. But you can know when this scale is going to play itself over and over again, because that scale is birthed and works like a freaking fig tree. Okay, everybody, let's quickly go to Luke 21. Back to Luke 21. And that's pretty much everything. Luke 21, and here's, I just want to read about the days of vengeance up here. So let's see, up here, yeah, we couldn't talk about, remember, you should be hated of all men for my name's sake, but there shall not a hair of your head perish. But it says, in your patience possess ye your souls. So you possess your souls with the 7 sevens, right? But it takes that patience. This is the 62 weeks. Remember, it says, see how it says city right here? That you have to build your city upon you. They're going to try to come destroy the city, right? That happened in the Middle East, but it's repeating in all nations now. That same game that happened there when Jesus was there spread to all nations. Now that same games were played over again. So that's what I said. Then it'll be back there again at the end. Why? Because eventually they're going to monopolize. Israel will monopolize all the markets, all the central banks in all nations, and then you'll have to see that game played out, because then what happens is the Nephilim come down and come out, and then they take over that land, and the hybrids take over the land again, just like they did before, right? And then that's when it says you'll see Jerusalem compassed with armies. What armies? There's an army. There's a couple ways this plays out. There's armies of the kingdom of heaven with the glory of the Lord on their face, and that's why Judea has to flee, right? Because God's going to destroy the Nephilim, and the ones that the ones that forsook the holy covenant and helped the Nephilim, which are the Jews that worship Baal, Sadducees, Pharisees, money changers. It's all the same thing again. These be the days of vengeance. When the vengeance is when God comes as a fiery vengeance on His army, right? So you think that things are going to get so bad, and then God has to rescue us? No. Things get so bad, and God has to, He'll help you escape in your patience as this is growing. You should be winning and winning and winning, and then you can leave individually if the brightness of your rising, like if you outmeasure theirs, you can leave individually, but if it doesn't, you'll end up being killed. That's why there's the 5th seal, right? You're given to His hand for a time, times and a half. As long as you don't know your covenant, you're going to have to flee sometimes, you know. But once you're bright and God comes on your face, now there has to be an army of you. If there isn't an army of you and they outnumber you, you know what I mean? Like, there's more of them there are of you, especially if you haven't got the glory of the Lord, the power of the Lord yet, right? So then God can take you then too. Like, you can leave and fight from a higher place. But so this is going to happen individually or corporately as concerning the resurrection. But in your patience, you possess your soul. As you possess your soul, you begin to build that fiery lightning on top of you, right? And then eventually it's going to come to a place where that spreads, the spreading of the clouds. And then you have an army, and then you go kick butt and take out the Nephilim. Troubles out of the east and north will trouble the devil. So then that's the days of vengeance. But there's people that need to wake up and they have to run. That's great distress. Here's great distress is from Nehemiah, which is great tribulation, right? That's wrath upon this people. What kind of people? Well, go down. That's when Jerusalem's trodden down, right? Till times the Gentiles be fulfilled, or when they leave, right? We get resurrected and we leave, right? We talked about the stress of nations, all down here. That's when we came back here. Then shall they see the Son of Man coming in cloud with great power and glory, right? With power and great glory. When these things, there's great, see, great glory. You need great glory. Not just glory enough to get you born again and feel the Holy Spirit speaking in our tongues, everyone. You need great glory. Great glory, and that comes from the brightness of your rising, and you got to be faithful unto the end. It means from line upon line, precept upon precept, to you at the seventh day, or the last trumpet seen on your face, all right? And you birth it. And when these things begin to come past, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. Actually, looking up is the brightness, how you do it. You do it, and that's what lift up your head is. We talked about that in Rise and Fall of a Countenance, and that's when your redemption draws nigh, right? I just want to see over here real quick. Yeah, it talks about the fig tree. Scroll down. This is when he's filled. Yeah, and this is what it says: is the unwise virgins, take heed to yourselves, lest any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting, drunkenness, cares of this life, so that day come upon you unaware. See, it shouldn't come upon you unaware, everyone. All right, you should know it'll be a snare, as a snare shall come upon all them that dwell on the face of the earth. Remember, it says in Isaiah 28 that the word Lord is line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, that you should fall back and be snared and taken, because it's an overflowing scourge. It says that they should be cut down out of time whose foundation was overflown by a flood. You're overflown by a flood, which works like a snare, and that which is it's talking about the fire of God on the face of the believer. So if you're an unwise virgin, you're going to die. You don't want that day to come upon you unaware, and you're going to die like fire. That's why it says the answer is watch or look up. Ye therefore and pray always. So you have to watch and pray. Pray is to watch, which is delight, which is to, remember, pray in Job meant to delight or lift up your eyes, which is watch, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come on the past and stand before the Son of Man. Why? Because when you stand before the Son of Man, you watch to stand before the Son of Man, the glory of the Lord's on your face, the lightning's on your face, his appearing, which is his work. You're his workmanship created in Christ Jesus. You need to escape that fire of vengeance. You see what I'm saying? So this has been told a completely different way. Last thing, we're going to go to Mark 13. And we're going to end with Mark 13:34. This is the last one, Mark 13:34. Back to a short video. Consider this a short video. 13:34 says, well, Mary says, take heed, watch and pray, for you know not when the time is. Well, remember, Ecclesiastes 8:7 says that the wise man discerns both time and judgment. Yes, you can know the times. You don't know the day or the hour, but yes, you can know the time. You can know when it shall be, right? For the Son, remember, as I said, Jesus spoke in parables the same way the whole book of Job was written, and everyone got their model from that. Okay? So for the Son of Man is as a man taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servants. Power and authority. You can have great authority or little authority. Depends. You know, you have to actually know that you can cast out devils, speak with new tongues, lay hands on sick and they shall recover, right? You have to know you can take up serpents and drink any deadly thing, shall harm you, right? You have to know your power, know your inheritance. To his servants and to every man his work. See, it's God's work to appear. There it is, your authority to come against all the devils, right? And commanded the porters to watch. Watch ye therefore, for you know not when the master of the house cometh. Actually, 1 Thessalonians contradicts this, because he's saying you know not when you don't watch, is what he's saying. When the master of the house comes, at even or at midnight or the cock crowing or in the morning. But it says in 1 Thessalonians 5:6 that we are not of the dark. You can look this up, but we are of the morning. Let's go to 36 and 37. So at the top of the page. And then it says, lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. See, you know not when you're asleep. Right? Now I'm waking you up with this. I'm waking you up with knowing the times. If you observe times, you're asleep. And what I say unto you, I say unto all. Unto all. See, he says it to you too today. Watch. So if he says it unto all, and then this book was written for us, that means it repeats itself. This is, if you're asleep, the great awakening is happening right now, that this thing needs to be built. Yes, so get off your butt, quit being lazy. You need to wake up, learn how to know the times, learn all 7 seals, vials, and trumpets, learn all 7 sevens, start passing the test, start walking with God, and you're going to see God show up, and then he'll be seen on your face, and then it should spread to your region. It should spread to your neighborhood. It should spread all over this nation, and our nation should go to the nations. But if our rising shall outdo our expansion, God has to take a harvest. Then we have to leave clues behind for the other nations to understand this. But you're going to go into the 7 thunders. That's the mystery. That's why they didn't write it. Okay? I'm going to end with that here. What do you think, Donovan? Did you learn something? Oh shoot, hey Dominic, can you hear us? Hello? Well, looks like Donovan cannot hear us, so alright, well so hey Donovan, just wave to everybody goodbye. We'll talk to you next time. Bye everybody.
You made it through the week to day 7, and finally, that's when you get to lay in heaven. Life is a game, and it's good versus evil. So let's take dominion for our people. And your life is a